Hey there everyone, what's up? Back today with another impressions video, and today we're going to be talking about one of the latest PSP releases. It's not so new. It's a couple months old, maybe 2 months or so. It's not incredibly new. Not like it came out last week, but it did come out very recently. So it's one of the pretty recent PSP releases, and that would be this game. Ultraman All-Star Chronicle. And, okay, it's Ultraman. I'm not really a fan of Ultraman. I don't watch Ultraman on TV. I don't, collect Ultraman figures, and I know very little about Ultraman in general, I think. I'm not I know a bit about Ultraman, but again, I don't watch the shows or, do anything about Ultraman, so I'm not, really, deep into it, so I'm going to try not to make any Ultraman related mistakes, because I know people seem to hop on other people because of that. But, take note right now, I'm not an Ultraman historian or anything. But I have recently come to I don't know, is the best word, enjoy Ultraman related games if it's crossed over with Kamen Rider. And I don't even know. I don't like Kamen Rider and I don't like Gundam either, but when those three are crossed over, I kind of like those games. I don't know why. I don't like any single one of them, but altogether, it's kind of a weird, interesting thing for me. Anyway, I haven't even started the review. We're 2 minutes in. Whatever. Ultraman All-Star Chronicle. So, why did I get this one? You're probably asking, or not. Ultraman All-Star Chronicle, it's only Ultraman, it's not a crossover game like those other ones. But I don't get all those other ones either. I did get the all Kamen Rider game, but it's kind of a genre I enjoy, so I thought oh, well, Kamen Riders and side-scrolling beat-em-ups, that's cool. And this Ultraman game turns out to be an all Ultraman type game, but it's a strategy RPG, which is right up my alley. It's exactly the kind of thing I like to play. So I was actually quite excited for this game. There have been a couple of other, Kamen Rider / Ultraman related games that have come out recently that I haven't bought because I'm not interested in them, the genre it is. But this one was oh, it's a strategy RPG, it's going to be awesome. And I picked it up not long after release. And I just finished it recently, maybe last week or the beginning of this week. No, not the beginning of this week, last week. And I gotta say, it's probably more fun if you like Ultraman. That's not to say it's a bad game, but it is to say it's not an incredibly good game. Let me explain. I'll explain the very basics of it. It's a strategy RPG, but it's not a very... I don't want to say it's not a very competent RPG. It's competent, but it's not anything above satisfactory in terms of pretty much everything. The graphics, not so great. The battle system, pretty simple. The maps, not so big. The party sizes, generally small. I want to say I didn't hate this game because I'm just kind of listing out complaints right now, but I did find it kind of mediocre, and I'll explain a bit about it so you can, think why do I think it's mediocre. And first, the story is this similar to all the other Kanpachi Hero games where suddenly for some reason. I mean, it's always some reason in all of the... the same story, basically, in all of the games is that, for some reason, some kind of, magic or technology or something will start bringing back dead enemies, enemies they've already defeated and should be not around anymore. And this game is pretty much the same kind of story, where, for some reason, I won't give it away. But I won't tell the story. But basic story is that all the Ultraman enemies have suddenly revived and are attacking various parts of the universe, and trying to, put forth this kind of ultimate plan by some shadow boss. who is also an Ultraman character. If you know Ultraman, you could probably guess who the main villain is. But probably, maybe, I don't know. I kind of guessed it actually through process of elimination from other games. So I don't know if you can guess it from the story or you would just guess it like I did. But if you're an Ultraman fan, obviously. But there are some good points about the game itself. Like, the basic story is, you know, it's the same kind of basic story. So it's not incredibly interesting. So it's not like something you're going to be really driven by to keep playing. But it does the kind of thing like Project Cross Zone does, where it keeps introducing new characters at a kind of a trickle. So like you want to continue playing just to see who's going to come up next, and it does a somewhat good job of that. Again, it's everything in this game is like kind of somewhat good, but not great. And it's another thing where my main drive to continue playing, like towards, you know, in the middle where it's kind of a slog, where it's not incredibly difficult and it's not incredibly, you know, fun, was just to figure out who is going to show up next. Which Ultraman am I going to get? And I think, again, I'm not an Ultraman historian or anything, but I think all the Ultramen ever are in this game. I'm not sure how many there are. I didn't count them, but as you go along, you can unlock a bunch of them. So you will get your like main ones, like your regular Ultraman, Ultraman Mebius, and Ultraman Zero. I think Ultraman Zero is supposed to be like the main hero of the game, though you can't use him all the time. But you get like Ultraman 80 and like Zophie and stuff. You know, like not exactly your like main Ultraman. I think like you get a lot of those kind of side Ultraman 7 and stuff like that. I mean Ultraman 7 isn't like a, I don't think he's a minor character, but whatever. But I mean, there's not like the Ultra King or whatever he is. I don't think so. At least I don't remember him being in it. But you know, like the Ultra Mother. I don't remember her name. It might be Ultra Mother. That seems to be it. Is not in it, I don't think, as a usable character. But you know, most of the kind of like fighting Ultramen from the series are in here, I think. But you know, that's pretty interesting, and the enemies are what you'd expect, I guess. Ultraman's main enemies. So you've got your like Barton, Seijin, and stuff like that. You've got all your kind of enemies in there. Like, again, it's not great. I can't like. I really wanted to like this game a lot, actually. I was really excited to play it, and I was like getting all hyped for this kind of Ultraman strategy RPG, and then like it's disappointing because it doesn't look that great, and the stages are really small. So like you'll get into the stages and they like, it's weird because like when you place enemies, the stage is just like wireframes, like Virtual World and Shadowrun or something. And after you place enemies, like it'll turn into like this kind of shoddily made map where like it looks poorly designed. It's just the graphics are bad, but like they look, you know, like we designed a model of a rock and then we just placed it on the map, so it looks like it's just like these items placed in squares instead of like a cohesive map. And that's, I mean, essentially what it is. So it doesn't look good, and the models are 3D, but they're not like incredibly good looking. So they end up being like just kind of meh, I guess. And like what happens is in the battles you have these kind of battle animations, and you know, usually people turn those off, but I always leave the battle animations on. So I left all the battle animations on, but the problem with the battle animations is not that they're bad, actually. They're actually pretty entertaining because they really are like they're kind of Ultraman battling. So you'll see the Ultraman doing their kind of like and then they'll like shoot a beam or whatever. And it's that's what they do. So you get that effect, and the sound effects are really good. That's probably the best part, the sound effects, which I love for these like kind of tokusatsu kind of games, because they're so 1970s Japanese, I don't know, monster television show sound effects. And what happens is like you get these kind of cool things, and the enemies do them too, but they don't directly interact, so you'll never see the enemy and the Ultraman on the screen at the same time, which is kind of a downside. Like, you kind of want to see them fight, but you just kind of see them do the move, and then it'll like switch scenes and it'll show the enemy reacting. So you'll never even see like the Ultraman punch somebody. It doesn't happen. So it's kind of disappointing in that way too. In that, like, you know, at least in those kind of other games that I've played with Ultraman, like, the models will at least jump out onto the screen and hit each other. Like, that actually happens. In this one, it doesn't happen. So it's kind of, even though I like those scenes, it's a disappointment. A lot of this game was disappointing. It's very mediocre. It's not incredibly long. It took me about 10 hours to do the main story, and there is like a kind of side sub story. So you have like 30 missions in the regular story, and the missions range from relatively easy to, like, there's kind of a difficulty spike near the end, where it's not like incredibly difficult, but comparatively it's difficult. So you probably won't have a huge amount of trouble with it, but, you know, if you're just like, you know, comparing it to the earlier parts of the game, where you can pretty much like just ignore everything and run through the enemies, like, it gets to the point where like you kind of actually have to think about it a little bit, which makes the it makes it seem unbalanced. Not generally because it's unbalanced, just because the game kind of it like primes you for an easier game, and then it turns into like a kind of normal level strategy where you have to actually think a bit. And that was actually the more fun part of the game for me, actually, when it got a little bit more difficult. But it does have some other problems. You have a lot of characters you can use, but usually the max you can use is about 5. There's like, I think, one map where you can use 6 Ultramen on the map, and there's there's some maps where you can only use like 3 or 4. But generally you can use 5. And what happens is the characters all level up, but they all level up separately. So you have to use them in a battle for them to get experience. And what'll happen is you'll find that you can't really use all the Ultramen. You can get them, you know, like, I had a ton that I rarely used. I was just like, you know, Ultraman Leo, sorry, you're you're on the sideline. The problem is that you'd get Ultramen and you'd start using them, and then you'd level them up, and then you get new Ultramen and they'd be a lower level, and you think, well, you know, I could use the lower level one and give myself a hard time, or I could just use the ones I've already been using that have been leveled up. And I found that, like, you know, towards the end of the game, like, I never used any of the new Ultramen. I just like gave up on those ones. You know, like, even sometimes you'd get strong ones like Ultraman Taro or something, and he would come out and you would be, you know, playing with, you could use him, or you'd have to use him for one or two battles or something, and he's all right, but like, you think, well, I have these other guys that I've already been using, and they're kind of strong too, so, you know, why bother with the new guy? So I found that, like, probably most people will just find the Ultraman they like and stick with those the whole game and not use the other ones, which I guess could give you some replayability if you're like a huge Ultraman fan and you really want to get through the game with other ones. But, you know, I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that because it's not a great game. That's like I said, there's 30 missions in the regular mission, and then there's like the extra missions, which is, there's 30 of those, and you unlock them through various conditions in the regular story. So I think, like, you have to collect ultra spirits or whatever in each stage. If you collect them all, it might unlock the stage, although that might not be the condition on all stages. I'm not entirely sure. But as you go through, you can unlock these extra stages, and the extra stages are different maps, and they're usually a bit more difficult. So I think they're meant to be played after you clear the main story. You go back and do the 30 extra missions, which, again, you'd have those 30 extra missions, but again, you wouldn't want to be using your new Ultraman on them because they're more difficult. So you'll find that even for those ones, you'll want to continue using the same Ultraman you've been using the entire time. So, you know, again, it doesn't really help you with the variety. Though I guess, like, probably some people have, like, their favorite Ultraman and they'll just use them. But, you know, it's nice to have, like, kind of an option where, like, maybe they could level up with your characters, or level up half experience or something just for not participating. You know, like how other games do that. but this game wasn't incredibly well put together, which is a disappointment for me. So let's see. That's mostly what I wanted to talk about. There's not a whole lot to talk about. If it's it's pretty simple. I mean, you have standard like get to the net square or in range of a distance attack, and then the enemy has their turn. It's really a pretty basic. There's all the Ultramen have like their own kind of special attacks that they can do through getting energy, and they're interesting and they're fun to look at. I like the animations for them and everything, but they're not incredibly varied. It's just like some kind of ultra kick or ultra punch or some kind of specium beam or specium beam variation, and that's kind of all you got. But I mean, they'll do different arm motions and the color might be different, but it doesn't like really give you the feeling like everybody is like their own special character. So they I will say that there are types. They have types, so there's kind of like a rock paper scissors system going on for who can do more damage to each enemy by their type. Like there's a speed type and strength type and technique types, but you could mostly ignore that for the entirety of the game. It's kind of in there, but optional, which is weird because like it's like a missed opportunity with the game in that like they could have forced you to use other Ultramen by making that more important. So like, oh, speed, if you use speed against this type, it'll do a lot of damage, but if you don't, it'll do very little damage and you won't be able to win. Like they could have done that, they didn't. So no matter what you used, you would always be able to win. So like you could just pick whatever you liked and roll with it instead of like really having to think about your party structure. Like as long as you brought someone who could heal, you're probably okay. And that's kind of how it played out, which made me think like they might have had some ideas for it and just kind of rushed it out because they didn't think it would do so well. And I don't know how well it did actually, but it was kind of a disappointment. I'm trying to think of who made this. I'm gonna look. I don't know. I'm not sure who the developer is. It's published by Bandai Namco, but the publisher is... I don't know. It's not written clearly, at least, anywhere. But it's too bad, because generally when Bandai, well, Namco Bandai or Bandai Namco makes these Ultraman kind of strategy RPGs, they usually use Banpresto to do it, and Banpresto definitely did not make this because they actually make good strategy RPGs, whereas this one is painfully mediocre. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either, and I probably won't play it again, which is too bad, because I really wanted to like it. I really went into it wanting to like it, and it kind of disappointed me at every turn. So I can't really recommend Ultraman All-Star Chronicle, even though I really wanted to. I really wanted to say, oh, this game is awesome. It's got Ultraman, it's got good strategy elements, but it doesn't. It doesn't have any of those. So it's just kind of painfully mediocre. And if you don't mind that, if you're just thinking like, well, I like Ultraman a lot, and I want to play a game with Ultraman that's strategy RPG, it's not bad in that case. Like, if you're a big fan, it's probably fun. But I'm not a huge fan. I'm just kind of like, on the edge of fan. So it doesn't do it for me. It was very mediocre. So I think I spent a lot of time bashing this game a bit, and I guess rightfully so, but it's just one of my recent disappointment. But Ultraman All-Star Chronicle, you might be interested, maybe not, but I wouldn't recommend it highly. So yeah, that'll do it. This video is long. It's about 20 minutes now, so I'm gonna end. So I guess that was it. I will see you guys next time.